New York City will turn into a shell of its former self as the city faces financial collapse and economic ruin. Hello everyone, this is Mr. Obvious, and today on the Hill. New York City is dying, and it's been dying for a long time. Even without the fact that during the coronavirus pandemic, New York City is one of the hardest hit cities in America. In fact, it was the hardest hit city in America, and the epicenter for coronavirus, aka COVID-19, aka the Wuhan Chinese virus, in the United States. Basically, it's New York City's fault that coronavirus was able to spread all over America so rapidly. And they're one of the worst hit states. They're also one of the most mismanaged. Democrats who run the state, including Governor Cuomo, have done a terrible, terrible job, and lots of people have died as a result. Now, before we look into this story, if you're new to the channel, of course, remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit the bell button for notifications. If you're a regular viewer, consider giving this video a share. Content like this is absolutely suppressed on social media, and the best way to defeat the bias of these social media platforms is to share the video online. Now, here we are. Imagine New York City 5 years from now, with the streets full of abandoned storefronts, closed eateries, and empty buildings. The cumulative effects of the coronavirus may be more overwhelming than the other challenges New York City has had to face during the past 2 generations, including the aftermath of that dreadful day in September on the 11th day. It is likely that the pandemic will simply accelerate the trend in the sharp decline of its population and livelihoods. Now, New York City was already losing population before the outbreak due to economic factors and quality of life issues. Now, to elaborate a little bit more on this, New York City has been rapidly losing its wealthy population. You see, when a Democrat runs a city, a state, a province, any place really, when a Democrat runs, they institute democratic policies, most of which include social welfare, bigger government, and higher taxes to pay for it all. And there lie the biggest fault with democratic rule. Not only are they inept, as New York City is a perfect example, they completely failed to contain the virus. They basically said, hey, it's not a big deal. You can go on the subway. Go ahead, don't worry about it. And then they backtracked after the virus exploded. And we're still seeing the disaster that is New York City. People who are diagnosed with COVID-19 in New York City are literally being put in retirement homes and nursing homes. And as you can imagine, this is only making the virus spread and kill more people. It's completely and utterly bad leadership. So back to the story. The article goes on to say that around 40,000 residents left between 2017 and 2018 alone. The coronavirus has fueled the population outflow. About 420,000 residents have fled New York City in the last few months. Blaze it! Even worse for its economy, the majority of those who left amid the pandemic are wealthy workers. Gasp! Are you saying that taxing the wealthy was a bad idea? I am shocked. Yeah, that's what happens. When you want to institute all of this social welfare and bigger government, more corrupt government, and wasteful spending, what you result in is a worse economy, people's money leaving their pockets, and the rich leaving. Because why the heck would the rich want to stay in your city, in your state? If you're taking all their money, they will leave. And that's exactly what they're doing. So, where did they go? Well, what do you know? According to the article, it says, many of them went to low-tax havens in the South, such as Texas, Florida, Georgia, and North Carolina. Wow. Are you saying that people would rather go to red states run by Republicans because these states are run by conservatives who understand that long-term planning is better than short-term pleasure? It might feel good to get more social welfare, but in the long run, you're hurting your economy, you're hurting your future prospects, and your state will probably collapse due to overspending, not enough revenue, etc., etc. So what makes me upset is that a lot of these wealthy workers, and we've seen this phenomena before, people will flee from Democrat blue cities and blue states, and then they'll go to these red states, Texas, Florida, Georgia, where the taxes are good, because they're low, because Republicans are in charge. And then what do you think they do? Do they vote Republican? No. They go on to vote Democrat. So these people are kind of like parasites. After living in the big city, after the city dies, the host dies, they move to a red state where things are good, and then they vote for the same policies that caused the previous cities and states to collapse. Continuing the cycle, it disgusts me to my core. If you're going to flee from a blue state to a red state, you better well damn vote red or don't vote at all. If it were me, if I was in charge of these states, I would simply ban people from blue states from entering the state. Period. We don't want your garbage here. We don't want you to ruin the state. It's not worth it in the long term. So continuing on with the story, eventually, it will not only be the 1% who leave. The unemployment rate in New York City has risen above 14%. Residents without a job or reduced hours will no longer have the income to keep paying high-sky rents for tiny living quarters. You know, that's something I never understood. Why would anyone want to live in the city? It's crowded. It's loud. There's crime. It's dirty. It's disease. And if there's a zombie apocalypse or, I don't know, a pandemic, you're screwed. Maybe, just maybe, living in a city is not that great. Not to mention, the cost of living is so high and things are so expensive. Why would you want to live in a city? Cities suck. This isn't some future utopia where the city is clean and nice and wonderful. This is modern day. Now, there's one interesting development that's a double-edged sword. Nearly 70% of those in finance and technology, for example, will be considering relocating if working remotely becomes permanent. Now, that sounds great. More jobs letting you work from home. I love the idea personally. The problem with this is that once companies realize that they can save money by letting their workers work from home so they don't have to pay for an office and all those associated costs, they're going to realize that there's basically no reason that they shouldn't just outsource all of the jobs to other countries for cheaper. So it could end up that a lot of people, oh God, like this is a nightmare. Okay, I'm a millennial. I was born in one of the worst times literally ever to be alive in America since the Great Depression. What did we have to look forward to, millennials? Well, there was many attacks on American soil. There was lots of breakdowns and tragic events. There was a pandemic. Oh, what about the financial collapse? What about the collapse of the housing market? What about the ensuing depression, recession, and economic devastation that we're currently living through? I guess I better just pull myself up by my bootstraps. That'll make this turmoil go away. But honestly, at this point, I think we're all kind of screwed. You know, we're all in the same boat, and the boat is sinking. So here's the fact of life. And this is something that's going to devastate a lot of business in America. Small luxuries, like dining out, may be off the table. Even when restaurants are allowed to reopen, a wave of bars and restaurants have also closed for good in New York City. So, I've read reports that a lot of the jobs that have been lost during this extended lockdown will never come back. A lot of these businesses will close, and it's not large businesses that are closing, it's small businesses, Americans, who created these businesses by themselves. They're losing their livelihoods. They're losing their futures. They're losing their dreams. And it's severely destroying America. The rich get richer. The poor get poorer. Those who did pull up their bootstraps are having their boots stolen. Look, I've said it before. If we were going to have a lockdown, it should have been for 1 month with a 8-month travel ban, a 6-month travel ban so that no one new could come in the country and get us sick. The whole nation locks down, right? The military gives out food. And all payments are frozen for a month or two. That would have wiped out the virus in a month. But what we've been doing, this half-assed lockdown, these half-assed measures have been a disaster for the economy, for people, for everyone. It's over. It's pointless. People need to work. I agree with this. I still think people should practice social distancing. I still think people should not be idiots. But people need to work. These businesses will never come back. Maybe some will. I guess we'll just have to see. So the pressure of fewer customers and knowing that laid-off employees will receive the $600 per week unemployment bonus make the decision to move more of a no-brainer than before. Wow. So Democrats who really argue for lots of social welfare like unemployment plus $600 extra to the point that a lot of people who are being laid off are now making more money being unemployed and doing nothing than they were working. It's backfiring massively because now these people are like, well, why am I going to live here? I'm just going to move. I got all this money now. It's a nail in the coffin. Meanwhile, someone like me who's technically self-employed and a full-time student, mind you, who's about to graduate during a pandemic, gets nothing. Yeah, really nice. But why is this bad? Why is all these people moving a disaster for New York? Why are they going to become a shell of their former selves? Well, the massive young people that move to New York City for its culture and opportunities will see them dry up. Without all the restaurants, museums, and crowds of young people, the social scene and nightlife will certainly be subdued.
Oh no, how tragic.
I've never understood the whole normie need to go outside and go to all these social events. Like maybe once in a while it's kind of interesting. Maybe once in a while I want to throw away like $100 on a restaurant or museum or something like that with a group, but it's certainly not something I want to do every single day. It's also certainly something I don't really care about, being social. But I guess the normies need it. They die without it. But the real issue here is that despite my personal preferences, people doing these things, engaging with these businesses, giving them money, that's what keeps the economy bustling. It allows the money to flow, which makes for a healthy economy. So in that way, thank God for normies. But if the normies can't do these things, well, all that money, all that economic movement is lost. So the end result of all this will be that the Big Apple will be without its core. Collapsing tax revenues from the decline in both business and residents will mean that many major programs and projects, from infrastructure to public safety and more, will either need to be bailed out by Uncle Sam
At the cost of taxpayer money.
or slashed by the government. Now, this isn't just happening in New York City, it's happening everywhere. The article goes on to say that this will likely not just be an issue for New York City. Similar factors will cause other urban centers to see similar flights. And what's interesting is that a lot of these places are in fact run by Democrats. So I'll leave it to your imagination as to why they're all collapsing. The story concludes, the pressure of the pandemic, high tax rates, soaring living costs, lack of security, and the bandwagon effect may end up bringing the Big Apple back to the bad old days of the early 1970s. With the best leadership,
Which New York City doesn't have a jack squat.
but anyone stepping into the vacuum has to first come to grips with how daunting the challenge really is. Now, one of the things I love best is this story caused a lot of hurt butts, a lot of salt, a lot of liberal tears. Here you can see that the top comment is deleted. It was censored by The Hill because leftists can't handle a little heat. Kevin Burr replies, I love it when Republicans talk about New York. It's always so positive. / sarcasm.
Oh wow, you destroyed him, dude. Good job. He is annihilated.
And of course, you have people bashing libertarians. Let me tell you something about the Libertarian Party. Yes, currently there is more partying than libertarianism, but that doesn't mean that it's a bad idea. I think the Libertarian Party just needs a little work. How about we take nationalists, right? People who believe in nationalistic policies, and we combine it with the libertarian, maybe even a little nationalist libertarian? Huh? Sounds kind of good. I like the sound of that. All jokes aside, folks, look, bashing libertarians, and that's not going to solve anything. Libertarians aren't the ones destroying New York City. It's Democrats, okay? Democrats have failed. They ruined your cities. If you're butthurt over that, I think you're just projecting your own failure. Regardless of what the Libertarian Party is or isn't, New York City is dying. But that, my friends, is merely the obvious. Well, that's all for now, folks. What do you think about this story? What do you think about New York City? Do you think that it's going to be nothing more than a shell of its former self after this pandemic and COVID crisis pass over? And let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Now, as always, if you like this content and want to support the work, you can join me on Patreon or subscribe for as low as $1. The links are down below in the description. There are different tiers, but you can pick whatever you wish. And if you do join, you will get access to a private Discord server as a joining bonus. Doesn't matter what tier you pick. And of course, if you want to donate, there's DonorBox, there's crypto. And of course, if you like this content, consider giving this video a share on social media. Red pill those normies and let them know how it is. Bye-bye, New York City. I won't miss you. But that's all, folks. Thanks for watching. This has been Mr. Obvious. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you all next time.